good, all of you beautiful people out there? How y'all doing today? That is fantastic. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Double Diesel Sports Podcast, the podcast where we talk everything National Football League in season, off season. It doesn't matter because it's football. I am your host, Double Diesel, and welcome to this Week 7 recap of the 2023 NFL season. Before we dive into the show, as always, I'd like to ask, if you have not done so already, to please like, subscribe, and share the video if you enjoy this content or know anybody who would enjoy this kind of content. Helps boost the exposure of the channel, helps get us out to more eyeballs. So if you've not done so already and you'd like to, please do so. That means the absolute world to me. Also, please go support me on Patreon if you've not done so already at patreon.com/Double Diesel Sports. Helps support this channel in a massive way financially. So if you would like to, the link to that will be in the description down below. But let's dive into the show. Week 7 is definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, been the weirdest week of the season so far, as we are officially approaching the halfway point of the season. And a lot of weird-ass games that have happened this weekend. A lot of weird situations of teams that you wouldn't expect to win, getting the win this week. There was 5 teams coming into this week that had a 1-5 record, and 4 of them came out on top. We will talk about one of those teams later on in the show. But let's start off this by talking about probably the weirdest and most unexpected, or one of the most unexpected games from a score perspective, and that is the Cleveland Browns heading to Indianapolis to take on the Indianapolis Colts. The Gardner Minshew-led Indianapolis Colts is coming off the official news earlier last week. I believe the news broke was Anthony Richardson, who had a promising start to his rookie year, officially now downgraded to out for the rest of the season. So it's Gardner Minshew time in Indianapolis, and man, this was a weird ass game. The Browns ended up winning this game 39-38 in what was the most unexpected shootout of unexpected shootouts, and the Browns came into this game off a massive high, beating the San Francisco 49ers at home the week before. And let's talk about the Browns first. The Browns, like I said, came into this game with such huge momentum, and Deshaun Watson was coming back, and you'd figure that Deshaun Watson, who is a better quarterback, or at least we presume so, than PJ Walker, and they were able to beat the best team in football last week with PJ Walker. So now it's like Deshaun Watson's coming back in there. This offense should get going a little bit more, especially with how that defense is playing. This should be a really good football team going forward, if not a great football team going forward. And Deshaun Watson attempted 5 passes in this game, completed one of them for 5 yards, and threw 2 interceptions. It went down as 1 interception in the stat sheet, but let's be honest, he threw 2 interceptions. He threw one that counted, and then the last one, which is his last pass attempt of the game, where he tried scrambling, threw it back across the field, across his body, and threw it straight to, I think it was Kenny Moore, and they ruled it incomplete, but he should have been a pick. He threw it right to him. Yeah, he does not look good. He has not really looked good all year, and left this game with an injury, which ended up probably being the best thing for the Browns, because PJ Walker came back into this game, and I'm not going to say he played great or anything, but he played well enough to keep the offense moving and keep the offense afloat. And the thing about the Browns is they scored 39 points in this game, despite not having a passing touchdown. There was not a touchdown through the air. There was 3 rushing touchdowns. One was a huge, 69-yard touchdown run by Jerome Ford at the start of the game. And then 2 more rushing touchdowns by Kareem Hunt on top of that. The only other touchdown scored by the Browns in this game was a defensive touchdown. So the Browns offense, it's kind of been the theme with the Browns offense. Not doing a whole lot, but doing just enough to get the team over the hump to win the game. But as far as the Browns defense goes, man, wasn't their best game on the defensive side of the ball, but it almost doesn't even matter when you have a guy in Myles Garrett who, let's be honest, is a head-to-head rival with Micah Parsons as far as who's the best defensive player in football. Myles Garrett had legitimately one of the best games I've ever seen a defensive player have. He finished this game with 9 total tackles, 7 solo, 2 assists. He had 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, one of which was a fumble in the end zone on Gardner Minshew that was recovered for the touchdown. That was the aforementioned defensive touchdown. And, oh, by the way, he blocked the field goal by jumping clear over the offensive line and blocking the field goal because fuck you. So, Myles Garrett is asserting himself as one of, if not the best defensive player in football. It's very close between him and Parsons, but, man, when you just have the ability to just completely take over a game like that, even if the rest of the defense isn't playing as good as it usually is, when you have just one guy that could completely take over a game like that, your odds of winning go up drastically, and your odds of just demoralizing an opponent's, like, you know how demoralizing it is for an offense to know that you can potentially move the ball in a defense, but you can't because you can't stop one guy. One guy, that's it. That's a whole that sucks if you're an offense that it's got to drive offensive coordinators crazy that you just got to contain one guy and you can't fucking do it no matter what you do. But as far as the Indianapolis Colts go, this wasn't anything super spectacular by the Colts either. Defense played as well as it could. The defense has kind of been a little more surprising. I figured they wouldn't be as good, but they played relatively well this year for the most part, and this game was no different. They're not a great defense by any means, but they're a defense that, kind of like the Browns offense, they do just enough to keep them in games. And as far as the Colts offense goes, kind of the same story. Nothing too spectacular. Jonathan Taylor looks back. He got into the end zone in this game. And Gardner Minshew, 2 rushing touchdowns by Minshew, had over 300 yards passing in this game. About half of those passing yards came on basically 2 plays. The big deep shot to Josh Downs early in the game for a touchdown. And then the giant play that went for like 60 yards to Michael Pittman, where he hit him over the middle on a crosser. Pittman broke a tackle, and he just outran everyone to the end zone. That's where most of those 300 yards passing came from for Minshew. But, yeah, this was a high-scoring game that you looked at it, and you're like, how was this a high-scoring game? Because neither offense was super explosive for the most part, outside of some huge plays here and there. But the main talking point coming out of this game that, we always try to avoid, but in this game we just can't avoid it, were the referees. And the referees, they kind of popped up horribly throughout all of week 7. And this game, they popped up in particular towards the end in a horrible way. Driving down the field, the Cleveland Browns late in the game have a chance to go down and take the lead. And they get into a goal-to-go situation. And they have a play drawn up, the Browns do, where Amari Cooper runs a good out route right at the goal line. He's wide open. He beats his man. He's wide open. PJ Walker's winding up to throw to him. But EJ Speed, the linebacker for the Colts, comes in clean, unblocked, gets a great hit on PJ Walker, forces a fumble, and DeForest Buckner falls on it. That should be game over. Game over, Colts win. Except the refs throw one of the worst illegal contact penalties I've ever seen. And I don't know if I'll ever see an illegal contact play worse than that. Because Baker, the corner in the game that was in there because Juju Bents, the rookie out of Kansas State for them, he got injured in this game. So Baker, who played earlier this year, got benched for Bents, was now put back in this game, and he was guarding Amari Cooper. And they show the replay, and it's, yeah, he touches him like slightly, but it more so helped out Cooper because Cooper put Baker in a bind where Baker got his hands on him, and then Baker fell down, and that's what resulted in Cooper being wide ass open on that route. So if anything, that penalty helped out Cooper in that situation. It's just a horrible penalty at the worst possible time that gave the Browns life. And then, like, I think it was the next play or the play after, on Baker again, where it's a pass interference called on Baker, where Walker tried to throw a fade route into the corner of the end zone. The ball was thrown past the white of the out-of-bounds marker, not remotely catchable in any way, shape, or form, and yet the refs still call pass interference, and I'm sitting here watching this, I'm like, what? How is it that bad? The refs have been bad before. We've dealt with referees making horrible calls multiple times over the years. But to get two horrible calls back to back like that on situations where you know they're like, that is not a good call, that you know in the moment. Like, the illegal contact may be one thing, maybe. But the pass interference, like, that's inexcusable. You can see in real time that wasn't catchable. I don't understand how you can make that call. And then after that, it puts the ball right at the goal line for the Browns. The Browns punching in with Kareem Hunt. And they take the lead, try to go for two, fail. And then on the next drive, the final drive of the game, the Colts try to drive down the field. Gardner Minshew gets strip sacked. Browns fall on it. Browns win. And let's be honest, they should not have won that game. The Browns should not have won that game because the refs basically handed that game to the Browns on the silver platter. And it just sucks because it was like a wild game that was a fun game to watch. And you're walking away from it with a completely sour taste in your mouth because the refs just had to get involved. That's what it felt like. It felt like the refs felt the need, like they had to get involved late in that game. And it puts a sour taste in your mouth because it was a fun game that just was completely ruined by horrible officiating. And it was like that throughout most of Week 7 as well. But moving on from that, let's move on to a game that I was really anticipating. I thought was going to be a really fun game between two up-and-coming powerhouses in the league. The Detroit Lions taking on the Baltimore Ravens. In Baltimore, you had a Detroit Lions team that was coming in with tied for the best record in the NFL at 5-1. And the Ravens looking like a really damn good football team in their own right. And I thought this was going to be a hard-hitting, tough, low-scoring, grinded-out football game. 38-6? Are you kidding me? Let's talk about the Lions first, because the Lions, this was, I want to say this is an outlier, and part of me thinks that this is just an outlier, because they've been really competitive in all of their games, and they've been really good, especially in the offensive side of the ball, in all of their games this year. And for them to completely lay an egg like this against a really good Raven defense, for sure, but the Lions offense just couldn't get anything going worth a damn. And whenever they did try to get momentum, they were immediately they ran into a brick wall. And and then defensively, they couldn't stop the Ravens offense worth a shit. I don't want to comment too much on the Detroit Lions because, this was the only game this year where they really did just look like they couldn't find an answer for anything, actually. So I do think this is a one-off. I do think this is just an outlier. Um, I wouldn't hit the panic button on the Detroit Lions yet because this was just one game, and it was one game where they just everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and yeah, it's only up from here. But I'm not scared. I'm not worried about what the Detroit Lions can be. If anything, we should be talking about how fucking well the Baltimore Ravens looked in this game. And coming into this season, when you're talking about what we expected from the Baltimore Ravens, because we knew they were going to be a good team. We knew this. It was just, what was the offense really going to look like? Was it going to look like something of years past where Lamar is more reliant on his legs, or the offense is more reliant on Lamar's legs and they're not able to get a consistent passing game going? Or were they finally going to get something together? We didn't know. And, it's been kind of up and down as far as that goes this year because, there have been a lot of times where they haven't been able to get the passing game going, not because of Lamar not being able to, but because, receivers dropping passes, receivers being inconsistent. It's been kind of up and down in that regard. This game was the perfect encapsulation of what we expect this offense to look like when everything is full go and clicking. Lamar Jackson is proving once again that he is asserting himself in the MVP conversation. Over 350 yards passing in this game. 3 touchdown passes. 2 of them to Mark Andrews, who had another great day on National Tight Ends Day. And the craziest thing about this, looking back on this game, was Lamar had over 350 yards passing, and yet there wasn't a single receiver on this team that had over 100 yards receiving. You know what that tells me? It tells me they're getting the ball around. There's not just one guy that Lamar is focusing on and one guy Lamar's relying on. For years past, that guy was always Mark Andrews, and teams would always circle like, all right, just find 89 and just blanket him because we know he's the only guy that Lamar's going to be trying to get the ball to. Now, you don't have to, now it's not that simple anymore. Because now you got to worry about Zay Flowers making big plays. Now you got to worry about Odell, who got some catches in this game. Now you got to worry about the occasional random Nelson Aguilar touchdown. Now it's like, now you got to worry about Gus Edwards coming out of the backfield and breaking off a huge 80-yard reception. It's like you got to worry about all these different things, and he's spreading the ball around, and it's just so refreshing to see, and it's working, and it's effective, and it's so nice to see. And that having a passing game like that sets up the ability to run design QB runs with Lamar, to open up the run game that was already great in years past, and now opens that up even more to lean into that, because now teams have to worry about the passing game. That was an element to this Ravens offense that was non-existent in years past under Greg Roman. And it's so nice to see. And another thing that I love to see, I mentioned the aforementioned Nelson Aguilar touchdown. That play shows the growth that Lamar has had so far. And that is, on that play, he was standing in the pocket, and then the pocket breaks down, and he starts scrambling. And usually, in the past, he would just, the second the pocket breaks down and he would escape, he would just take off and run, and he would just try and pick it up with his legs or try and pick up a touchdown with his legs. Instead, the pocket collapses, he leaves the pocket and stays back there and still is looking downfield. He's not looking to run. He's looking to try and find somebody open, and he buys time, and then he throws to Nelson Aguilar, who beat his man for a touchdown. And it's like, I mean, we kind of saw glimpses of that, even at Louisville. Like, we saw at Louisville, there was a lot of times where it's like, if that's the offense he's running, he does, for the most part, want to play from within the pocket. He's just so much better of an athlete and so much faster than anybody that, you kind of, if you're an offense, you'd be stupid not to lean into that. And if you're Lamar, it'd be stupid not to lean into that. But you saw even back then, like, he wants to play from within the pocket. But there have just been times where, whether it's offensive coaching, whether it's not having the weapons around him to feel comfortable enough playing in the pocket, he just wouldn't do that consistently. Now all of a sudden he is, because he has receivers and he has an offensive system that allows him to be more comfortable playing from within the pocket and always looking downfield and trying to make the throw. And he has the arm talent to do it. So Lamar is officially back into the elites of the elites tier in the NFL. And the Ravens defense also looked incredible against a really damn good Detroit Lion offense. Not really much to say about that because we kind of knew this Ravens defense was really damn good. But now we're talking about the Baltimore Ravens as, could they compete against the Kansas City Chiefs? Could they be a realistic team to knock off the Kansas City Chiefs? If they play like that every Sunday, there's no reason why they can't. So that's that for the Baltimore Ravens. And but yeah, this was a game for the most part that I was not I expected this game to be a lot more competitive. I was not expecting this game to have the result that it did. Speaking of games that had an unexpected result, the Buffalo Bills taking on the New England Patriots. Now, I will admit, let's talk about New England first. I will admit, I came into this game not expecting anything. And to be honest, I had entered a phase in my fandom where I was like, you know what? Losing out is not the worst thing in the world because, there's a lot of holes on this team. This offense is a massive problem. Hey, try and just sell as many players as you can, get as many draft picks as you can, and rebuild and look forward to 2024. And they came into this game, and the Patriots, all of a sudden, look competent on offense in this game. They're running the ball relatively effectively. They're getting pushed at the line of scrimmage. They finally figured out a line combination that works, putting Mike Onwenu at right tackle and Sidy Sow at right guard and keeping the left side of the line the same when they're healthy. And they started to get a push, and they started to get some going in the ground game, and they were able to keep Mac Jones upright. And Mac Jones, for the first time in God knows how many weeks, didn't try to play hero ball. He just sat back in the pocket and just went through his reads. And he's a guy that if you keep him upright, he can go through his reads and make the right decision and make the right throw and meticulously drive the ball down the field. And this offense has shown in this game that they can, if everything's clicking, they can drive the ball down the field. They're good enough to do that. It was also great to see, them get Pop Douglas, Demario Douglas. The rookie had a Liberty more involved. Kendrick Bourne was making plays. They were, Farrell Brown is apparently a receiving threat as a tight end, apparently. And, this team almost gave it away late. I will admit, they almost gave it away late, even though they were leading for most of this game. They gave it away late where the Bills were able to take the lead with 2 minutes left to go. And then Mac Jones, another thing that we have been clamoring Mac Jones for was he can't, when the moment comes where he has to drive the team down the field and get the win, he can't do it. He's had multiple chances over the years to do it, and he can't do it. This game rather, he had the chance to do that, and I was down. I was bummed. I was depressed. And then the first play of the drive, they throw a screen pass to Ramondre Stevenson, who gets a huge gain that puts him 5 yards outside of field goal range. And then all of a sudden, Mac gets into the zone. He, on a third down with a guy just this close to getting a strip sack and potentially ending the game, Mac just stands brave, and throws a great pass to Hunter Henry to convert and move the chains. Then he drives them down into the goal-to-go situation. And then it ends up resulting with 12 seconds left, ball at the 2. And in that moment, I'll tell you what I thought in that moment as a fan. All of a sudden, with how they played all game and how that drive had gone, all of a sudden, I didn't care about Caleb Williams anymore. I didn't care about Drake May. I didn't care about getting a top 5 pick. I didn't care about tanking. I didn't care about the trade deadline. I didn't care about trading guys off. I didn't care about any of that. I just cared about getting the win in that moment. So when Mac Jones dropped back and threw a slant route to Mike Gesicki, who had beat his man, and Mike Gesicki scores his first touchdown as a Patriot to take the lead, and then performs the worst fucking gritty I've ever seen in my life, but I've never been so happy to see that goddamn thing. I felt a sense of joy that I had not felt in a fucking month of watching this team. All of a sudden, all the thoughts of tanking and trying to get better draft capital and rebuilding, I didn't care about that in that moment. I just cared about going into a game and winning against a hated rival and putting them in a situation where they're in a spot where winning the division is tougher on them now. And Mac Jones, this was the first game in his career where the Patriots won this game because of Mac Jones. Honestly, like, the one turnover they had on offense this game was not Mac's fault. He completed it to Kendrick Bourne late in the game, and when the Bills had a little bit of momentum, and Kendrick Bourne fumbled the ball, and it gave them the ball within their territory, deep within the Bills' territory. And that was really it. That was the only turnover on offense, and it wasn't even Mac's fault in any way, shape, or form. And when he's upright and he's not trying to force things and he's not turning the ball over, he can be a good quarterback that you can win with. And in this case, won because of. This was just such a great game for New England. And now it's a matter of, can they build on this? They go into Miami next week. And they're playing against a team that earlier the year they lost by only 7 points to. And they're playing against a Dolphins team that, like I said, they already beat. That just lost to an Eagles team on primetime. That the Patriots were a Kayshon Boutte toe inbounds away from potentially beating themselves. And the Patriots are going into that game after beating a Bills team that beat the Dolphins a couple weeks ago by 28 points. Now all of a sudden you're thinking of, do they have a shot here? Have they figured something out? Do they might have some momentum? Max seems to have his confidence back, and that's huge. The offense in general seems to have confidence, and that's massive. And I haven't even talked about the defense yet. The defense, despite losing their two best players on defense, Judon and Gonzalez, they played this game perfectly against Josh Allen and the Bills' offense. They were incredible. Jabril Peppers came up with a huge pick on the first drive, on the first play of the game for the Bills' offense. And outside of that one 5-minute stretch late in the fourth quarter, they were able to hold the Bills' offense in check for the vast majority of this game. And it shows that if everything's clicking and if everything works, especially on offense, this team can compete with some of the better teams in the league. We saw it earlier this year, the first 2 weeks. We saw it. This team has the ability to. It's just, injuries have kicked this team in the ass, and they haven't been able to keep the offensive line healthy, but they seem to have finally done that now. Now it's time to see if they can build off of it. And who knows, this could just be a one-off, and they lose out, and they're picking in the top 5 anyway. Who knows? But at least for 1 week, I can feel fucking joy. But now as far as the Buffalo Bills go, oh boy. The Bills, would you say it's time to hit the panic button for the Buffalo Bills? because, we're now going on 3 straight weeks now where the Bills have not looked like the Super Bowl contending team that we have hyped them up to be. You go back to the game they played in London against Jacksonville, and they were sleepwalking through most of that game. And then you go to last week on Sunday Night Football against the Giants, and they barely win that game. They were one missed call in the end zone away from losing that game to the Giants. And we had concerns coming out of that game. I talked on this show last week that, the Bills did not look good in that game. Yeah, they won, but they did not look good whatsoever. And then you go into this game against the team that everybody, myself included, expected you to demolish. Everyone expect the Bills to just demolish the New England Patriots because that's what they've done for the past 3 seasons. They were 6-1 against New England coming into this game over the past 3 years. And the problem with this, I'll start with their defense, because the defense, you can only do so much. They're a well-coached defense, but, injuries have just demolished this team. I should use a different word other than demolish, but, there's no other way to say it. It's like injuries have completely destroyed this team on defense. Like, Matt Milano's out for the year. Tre'Davious White is out for the year. Ed Oliver was out for this game. Von Miller's still not at 100%. This is a banged-up defense, but New England was also missing their 2 best defensive players. They've also had a ton of injuries. They're just as injured coming into this game as you were. So, and even then, despite all the injuries, you were still going into this game playing against an offense that averaged 11 points per game going into this game. There's no reason for this offense to go against that offense and allow damn near 30 points. I don't care who's injured. And as far as offense, this team does not want to, cannot, and does not care to run the football. I mean, we've known this for the past few years now, that this Bills team just can't run the ball. When they try to run the ball, they can't. And they also, partially don't want to run the football fully. And then when they try to run the football, can't do it. And then when it doesn't work after 1 quarter, they're like, fuck it. We'll just throw the ball all day. Which is not a bad strategy in theory, because you have Josh Allen, who's one of the most physically gifted quarterbacks of all time. And you have Stephon Diggs, who's a top 5 receiver in football. And so in theory, just throwing it 50 times a game is not the worst idea in the world. But the problem is Josh Allen, and this game proved it more than anything, Josh Allen is way too reliant on Stephon Diggs and getting big plays past the sticks. And when you get into a situation where you're going against a Belichick coach defense where they are forcing you to take 5-yard hitches every single play, Josh Allen is not the kind of quarterback that is okay with just taking 5-yard hitches every play. He might for 3-4 straight plays, but then after play 5, play 6, he's going to be like, I'm tired of throwing a hitch. I want to throw the post route to Stephon because I know he can make a play on it. Which most of the time he can, but what about the times where he can't? And most of the time a defense, especially a Belichick defense, is doing that because they know Josh Allen's only wired one way. He's only wired to throw the ball down the field past the sticks all the time. Hell, that's what happened on the first play of the game, where Josh Allen tried, instead of taking the underneath route in the flat, he tried to throw it to Dawson Knox on a corner route, and Jabril Peppers saw it, he knew it, undercut it, and picked it off. That was the first play of the game. And And late in the game, it worked. Like I said, during that 5-minute stretch late in the fourth quarter, it worked where they were down 2 scores and they were just throwing it down the field trying to get anything going. And this offense is designed in a way where it's like, if you need Josh to do that 5 times a game, he can do it. But they're putting him in a situation where they're asking him to do it 15, 17 times a game. And he's not built like that to do that consistently. This offense is designed for Josh to basically just play hero ball all the time. And they're not successful consistently like that. And you wonder why they have these games constantly where they should be winning these games, or they should be winning these games by bigger margins than they are. And it's because of that reason. It's because they're too reliant on Josh Allen being a superhero. And, it's gotten to the point where it's like, this is what the Buffalo Bills are. They're a good football team that will make the playoffs. But as far as them legitimately beating the Kansas City Chiefs and legitimately contending for a Super Bowl, I don't think the Bills are that team right now. They're just not. Until they find a way to actually not just get a running game, but commit to a running game. Because it doesn't matter who, because James Cook has learned in his second year to sit there and say, hey, 5-yard carries are wins. He's learned that. He's a good enough back where he can, get you 4 or 5 yards a carry. But you can't really do that if you're giving up on the run after 1 quarter. So, yeah, man, I don't know what. The Bills are playing against Tampa on Thursday night, and I don't have the full confidence that the that the Bills are able to win that game, because the Bucs defense is tough to run on as it is. You're talking about a team that can't run the ball worth a damn, and they're going against a defense that's one of the better run defenses in the NFL that are going to force them to pass the ball. And now New England has made the blueprint of exposing what Josh Allen and the Bills offense want to do. They want to push the ball down the field all of the time. They want Josh Allen to play hero all of the time. Teams now have the blueprint on that. Now, will teams execute them? Probably. Most likely. If they're playing against a defense that's talented enough, they absolutely can. But yeah, as far as the Bills being Super Bowl hopes or Super Bowl aspirations, I don't have that faith in them anymore. I just don't. Now let's move on to the primetime games. First one, Sunday Night Football. Dolphins, Eagles. I was really excited for this one because I thought we were going to get an offensive shootout, especially with this offense for the Dolphins and how they've been performing, and the Eagles offense, how they've been performing. And the Eagles are coming off a really brutal loss against the New York Jets, so they were coming in with a vengeance. And I honestly, my main takeaway was a couple things. One, again, the fucking refs. It almost felt like they were trying to fuck over Miami a lot of the time in this game. But outside of that, are the Philadelphia Eagles the most overpowered team we've ever seen? Like, this team is just ridiculous. Like, first of all, you have Jalen Hurts, who finally in this game, after struggling for most of the year, having kind of up and down performances, this year, or in this game rather, he comes in and finally looks like the MVP guy that was playing last year. And he was running it like crazy. He was making confident throws to A.J. Brown, who this was his 5th straight game with 125 yards receiving. Yeah, he's probably in the conversation for the best wide receiver in football. They were running the ball relatively well. And, the brotherly shove really is a broken play for that team. I still am on the boat that I don't think it should be banned. Mainly because the Eagles are the only good team at running it. If it was a situation where if every team was good at running it and it was a constant victory for every team that runs it, then it'd be a different conversation. But no, the Eagles are just too overpowered with that play. But you can't really blame them because, they have the best interior offensive line in the NFL with Jason Kelsey and Landon Dickerson and, them big motherfuckers up front that they're going to win regardless on that. And also helps to have Jalen Hurts, who is like 245 pounds in his own right. And then you have DeAndre Swift and A.J. Brown, who are big motherfuckers in their own right, also shoving him forward. So that probably fucking helps. But yeah, the Dolphins couldn't really get anything going consistently on offense. They had one offensive touchdown in this game. That was, basically it. Their only other touchdown came on a Jerome Baker pick six. But other than that, the Eagles defense, they shut down a Mike McDaniel offense, which for most of this year, I didn't think was possible. And as far as Miami goes, they're now 5-2. And, you get this kind of conversation every couple of years. And the Miami Dolphins have kind of now entered the conversation of the who have they really beaten. They're now the, who have they really beaten team? Because if you let's look at their schedule real quick. So the Miami Dolphins, in week 1, they beat the Los Angeles Chargers 36-34. And the Chargers, we've kind of seen the issues that they have had. They beat the Patriots on Sunday Night Football 24-17. And, we've seen the struggles that the Patriots have had this year. Then they beat the Broncos 70-20, and the Broncos are one of the worst teams in the NFL. Then they lose to the Buffalo Bills 48-20. Okay, there was their one other loss. Then they steamroll the Giants 31-16. Again, the Giants, one of the worst teams in the NFL as well. And then they beat the winless Panthers 42-21. They beat a team that coming into this week had a combined 5 wins. All their victories came against teams that coming into this week had 5 wins combined. So now it's understandable why the Dolphins, why people are looking at them as like, well, how good of a team really are they? Because they're beating up on some of the worst teams in football. And then when they play teams that are playoff caliber teams or Super Bowl contending teams, all of a sudden they can't get it going. The 2 teams they played against this year that are playoff caliber teams and or championship caliber teams, they got demolished. I mean, the Bills ran through them a couple weeks ago, and the Eagles handled them. They beat them handily in this game. The Eagles beat them handily. So there's some questions now with how good is this Dolphins team actually? So that's a question going forward. I'm not going to hit the panic button fully, but it is something to really think about with the Dolphins. And as far as the Eagles, I mean, there's really nothing else to say about them. They're overpowered. Defensively, they're incredible. And then to wake up the following morning and to see that they made a trade for Kevin fucking Byard. And it's like, we're talking about how the tush push needs to get banned. The brotherly shove needs to get banned. Howie Roseman needs to get banned. Because how the fuck is he able to constantly keep getting away with this? And why are teams constantly gifting the Eagles these great fucking players? More specifically, why are the Titans gifting them their great fucking players? Yeah, because the A.J. Brown trade worked so well for them. The Eagles are just not fair at this point, bro. They're just not fair at this point, man. But honestly, it's gotten to the point where it's like, if the Philadelphia Eagles don't win the Super Bowl this year, now it's like, all right, what is it going to take for them to win if they don't win it this year? So that's that game. Final game I want to talk about is last night's game, Monday Night Football. The 49ers taking on the Minnesota Vikings, a Vikings team that is kind of struggled at the start of the year after going 12-5 and winning the division last year. They started out really slow this year. All those close games that they were winning last year, they were coming out on the losing end this year. They came into this game without Justin Jefferson, who's on IR, and they're going against a 49ers team that, you thought probably has something to prove a little bit after losing close to the Cleveland Browns the week before. And they came into this game without Deebo Samuel and came into this game with Christian McCaffrey banged up, and also no Trent Williams in this game as well. But it was still a 49er team that is, still had George Kittle, still had Brandon Ayuk, still had Brock Purdy running the show, and still had that great defense. And yet, the Minnesota Vikings came out on top. They came out on top 22-17, and Kirk Cousins, the big, Kirk Cousins curse. He can't play in primetime. Whenever you put a spotlight on him, he shrivels up. It can't perform. All of a sudden, it looked like him and Brock Purdy kind of switched roles a little bit. It was Kirk Cousins. Despite not having Justin Jefferson, it was Kirk Cousins that was wheeling and dealing and sitting back there and looking confident and reading the defense and, making plays and getting out of pockets and throwing dimes to Jordan Addison. And he did have an interception in this game, but it was on the first drive of the game where it was a great play by Javarius Ward where it's funny because, there were two plays in this game. One on the first drive of the game where Javarius Ward was one-on-one with Jordan Addison, and Javarius Ward, it was zipped in there, and Ward kind of ripped it out of Jordan Addison's hand for the pick. And then one of the last plays of the first half, Kirk Cousins throws a strike down the field. Jordan Addison one-on-one with Javarius Ward again, and Ward looks like he gets an interception. And instead it was Jordan Addison that ripped the ball out of Ward's hand, and he breaks free and he scores his second touchdown of the game. It's sort of like I got you. No, I got you. So that was kind of funny to see. But back on a serious note, Kirk Cousins looked incredible. And the Vikings as a team looked really damn good. After a slow start this year, they're now sitting at 3-4. And they now have a little bit of confidence. And if they're able to get something going, imagine what they look like when Justin Jefferson comes back and off of IR. Something to look at. And also, Brian Flores has done an incredible job with this defense. That was one of the worst defenses in the league last year, like historically bad defense last year. Brian Flores has done an incredible job with this defense. So he should absolutely be back in the head coaching conversation for sure. And as far as the 49ers go, the 49ers, they looked like the best team in football, and they're now going on 2 straight losses after Brock Purdy had not lost a regular season game and had not really lost a start his entire career before last week, is now facing 2 straight losses. And yes, they didn't have Deebo in this game, and yes, Christian McCaffrey was banged up with an oblique injury, but Christian McCaffrey played in this game, and he looked like he wasn't injured at all. He had 2 touchdowns in this game, which is now 16 straight games that Christian McCaffrey has scored a touchdown in, and which is the longest streak in NFL history, by the way. And he, despite the injury, looked like he was completely healthy. He was still the best player on offense for them. And let's keep it honest. Brock Purdy lost this game for the 49ers. They had 2 chances late in this game to go down the field and score, and Brock Purdy cost them on both those situations by throwing 2 horrible picks. One of them, I think, was both of them to Cam Bynum. I think both picks were to Cam Bynum. The first one, there wasn't a 49er in the vicinity. He threw it straight to Cam Bynum. And then the last one was on the drive late in the game after the Vikings missed a field goal. And, they were down with a chance to win this game on a game-winning touchdown. And Brock Purdy, under 30 seconds, again, just throws it straight to a Minnesota Viking. And throws it to an area where there was one receiver in the area and just a bunch of purple surrounding him. And it's one of those that's like, what were you thinking in that moment? So, and Brock Purdy's starting to show a little who he is. Like, he's good when the structure and the playmakers are around him are good enough and elite. But, you know, he's so far in the NFL, he's never had to face a situation consistently where he's playing from behind. And I think he panicked. And he was trying to make a play that, you know, he wasn't super capable of making. And it cost his team the game. And now all of a sudden, you know, the 49ers are good enough. When Debo comes back, everything will be fine for sure. But, you know, the 49ers and Brock Purdy especially are starting to look mortal. They're starting to look a little bit beatable. And, you know, it's a matter of we'll see what happens. I'm not worried fully about the 49ers, but they definitely don't look like the unbeatable force that they looked like a couple weeks ago. So that is going to put a wrap on this show today. Like I said, if you've not done so already, please like, subscribe, and share the video if you enjoy this content or know anybody that enjoys this content. Also, if you want to support the channel, go support me on Patreon at patreon.com/Double Diesel Sports. And that link will be in the description down below. With that being said, I'm Double Diesel. Peace.